Now this is going to be part 2. This is the following day my kit came in, so this is what you'll need. If you have a 2009 to 2012 ZX6R, you need a 7.4. So what that 7.48 millimeters is the width. So these are all your shims. They have a different amounts. It's the width, it's not the thickness. So the width, what you need is 7.48. You could go with any, company. I just use Hot Cams mainly because Sean Nielsen puts it in his RSV4, and if I know he's putting it in that, then I know that these are, good. So if you look really closely, they do have numbers on them. Some of them do, some of them don't. You'll also need your measurements and your paper, and you need a micrometer or micrometer, however you want to pronounce it. I did like a YouTube search on which the best one, and eye gauging apparently is the most accurate. You may need more. So for example, this is what I was worried about. I have 0.18, 0.18, 0.18, 0.18 4 times, yet I only have 3 shims. So I'm gonna have to do one of two things. Just hope that there's another shim that's OEM in there that I can use, or I can just go to the top of the spec range that it needs to be in. So instead of being dead center between 0.24 and 0.31, I could be at 0.3 instead of, So that's something I can do as well. As long as it's within spec, that's what you want. They also provide a little magnifying glass. Do this all over again for the 3rd time. Yes, I know it's an overkill, but I just really want to make sure, since this is my first time doing it. I'm going to do that, and then I will get back to you guys. I taped around this bit because it's a T45 bit for making it on top dead center. I taped it because it was starting to scratch the threads on the outer side, so make sure yours doesn't do that. So now I have doubled and then triple checked all of my measurements, and they all line up perfectly. This is exactly what I measured. So now the next step is we do need to adjust the valves. Now what that means is all of the tappets, there's 16 of them, there's little tiny shims. So this will just keep spinning, right, as this goes down, and then it'll come up, right, as if this is the cam lobe. And if this tappet is getting too tight or too close to this, not only will it wear out the cam lobe, but it'll also ruin the finish on the top of the tappet, and it's just bad for your engine. It doesn't run as smoothly. So in order to put it back in spec, so you would take out the shim, right, out of the bike, and if this is too big, you would put it back in your kit. So you put it back in your kit, so 1.4, and then we would get a smaller one, which I just grabbed a small, oh, here it is. So then, let's say 1.4 was too thick, then we would go down to a 1.3. That way this isn't hitting the cam lobe. In order to take off these caps for the camshaft, it's all under tension. It's really, really stiff, spring-loaded tension. So what you want to do is you want to loosen up this cam chain, and by doing that, you go right here. This is your cam chain tensioner. You're just going to loosen this up and completely remove it. It's going to sound like it's clicking, kind of like a ratchet, and remove it all the way. That way it will release the tension on this cam chain. And then there is a specific order in which you do take these out, so I'm just fair warning that I'll pop this up on the screen, and that's the order that you have to take them out by. And they have them numbered 1 through however many of these are. And so you remove those in that order, that way it evenly comes up and it doesn't just spring load, the camshaft along with the cam chain. So that's what your cam chain looks like. So you got your 2 bolts on the outside, and then there should be a middle bolt. So what it does is it pushes, so the stopper presses up against the cam chain as this loosens over time. I don't know when the exact mileage is when I should replace that, but I'll look into that later. Right here, this is the order in which you have to remove it. And the manual, service manual, explains everything. So remove the camshaft chain tensioner, then loosen the upper camshaft chain guide bolts and the camshaft bolts as shown in sequence 1 through 20. So there's not 24, like I said, there's 20 of them. So you would remove the cam chain guide first and do it in the order that it tells you. So we'll start with bolt number 1, and then bolt number 2, and then 3 and 4. So, but also do this first, the cam chain guide. And these are all the same bolts, so it doesn't matter, you know, which order you place them in. But if you want to be careful about it, go for it. You can't really mix these up, because if you look right here, it says R. See how it says R right there? That lets you know that it's the right camshaft cap. So just keep them in order so you don't mix them up. Also states that it's a non-return camshaft chain tensioner, so it's not going to go back in the spot that it was. So you're going to have to reset it once you install it, which the installation is right here, and it'll tell you how to do that. So this is a 12 millimeter there you go, the spring and rod, and then put it in a safe spot. Now we can remove these mounting bolts. Thank you, Kawasaki, for putting all this in the way. Move these, and I'm going to turn off the camera because it's so hard to do this with one hand. Alright, there she is. It is the CCT, or cam chain tensioner. So I just kept it in the order that it goes in. I have the top bolt and then the bottom bolt. Just keep in that order, and then don't move it. Ridiculous! I got a strip bolt from the Allen key. It, like, would not come out. Oh, it was like I was on my last bolt. Wish me luck. I've been at this for like an hour. It's ridiculous. This is probably why mechanics charge so much, because shit like this happens. So I'm gonna chisel it and hopefully I can get it undone. I've tried everything. I've tried the star bit, I've tried an Allen key, I've tried freaking everything. So this is my last bet. Okay, so now all the bolts are taken out, and the same way that I took them out, I'm just gonna do that just to be safe, just because I can, and I'm OCD like that. So I have them all in the right order. Now that we did A, we're gonna do B. Yeah, I'm gonna do this with 2 hands. My hands are all slippery. Little fucker. Sorry, it's just been hell trying to get this thing out.
Fuck! Yay!
Gosh, just look at that. I'm not even joking, guys. This took me hours. Hours. Now that I have, so as you can see, I've gotten the cam caps off. They're just sitting right there. You have these, when you take the caps off, you've got these rubber seals, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Make sure you clean those. I think 2 of my spark plugs had just a tiny bit of oil, which I actually believe was just a spark plug itself, not the actual O-ring. So go ahead and inspect those, make sure there's no cracking. These look pretty good. They did a great job keeping out dirt. Once you're done with that, remove those, and then you can remove this camshaft. And remember that you have to keep this in a specific order. So remember that, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Alright, so we got almost out. So you'll see how this circle is smaller than that circle. That's because these circles right here have pins in them. So make sure for one, you don't drop it in there. And then 2, make sure you put them back in the order that you came from, just to be safe. My village is being raided. Okay, so as you can see, I have marked with a Sharpie just 2 spots on the chain and the sprocket itself. You have to focus there. So that way I know that's where it lines up. So that is critical. So if by chance you do just take it out, you'll probably have to take the engine apart, unless, you might be able to see. You would have to line up, there's little notches on the sprockets, which are really hard to see from this angle, but you would have to line those sprockets up with the piston 1 and 4 that you did before you took all these off. Make sure that stays in that order. Then the next thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hook this chain up to probably my handlebar and just hold it so it doesn't drop down in the engine. And then also count your links from your furthest notch. So there's this notch and then there's this notch. So not counting the marked ones, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 in between each sprocket. 1 link, 2 link, 3 link, 4 link. Okay, lo and behold, we have our tappets or our buckets. So that's what they look like. They're like polished heads. Underneath these are little shims, and I'll show you here in a second. So on the inlet we have 0.1. So cylinder 1 right here, this one is out of spec. This one's out of 10. It needs to be between a 3 and a 9. We are going to adjust that. You do not have to touch the ones that are in spec. So 3, 4, 5, and number 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. We do not have to touch. 1, 2, 3, and I believe 8, whatever it was. Those are the ones that you have to remove. You then take your magnetic tool and underneath you have your shim. That little tiny thing is a shim, which raises or lowers this bucket. So we're just gonna remove that and then take the shim out. And that right there is your shim. So we're gonna go ahead and measure that. So it's hard to see that number, but that number says 185. So take our eye gauging. You clean off this shim, make sure there's no oil or dust or anything like that on there. And lo and behold, it's 185 or 1.85 millimeters. So that is the thickness of this shim. So we have A. A is our present shim thickness, which is the little shim we just measured, which is 1.85. Now my measured valve clearance, which is the first thing you did, is going to be this first number. The first number that you measured, which is 0.1. We're going to do 1.85 plus 1.0 minus, and the minus is this number that they give you. They give you 2 numbers. So then we're going to go ahead and minus it from the average, which is 0.16 equals 1.95. Then we're going to minus 0.16, which is equal to 1.79. Or in other words, we'll just round up to 180. As you'll look on these numbers on the shim kit, 1.8 is your new measured thickness. So you look on here and it will say 1.80. Now that you have that, you're also gonna measure that again. Take that, and so it should be 180. And there we go. So you now have your new shim, which is this one, and what you're gonna do with this one, which is 1.85, you're gonna go ahead and put it in the 1.85. I now have 4 of them. So there you go. That is how you do it. We're gonna do that exact math for the inlet. Focus on one at a time. Like, focus on the inlet first and go down your list, and then work on the exhaust. You don't want to be bouncing back, because if you mix up the average numbers, the 0.275 and the 0.16, if you keep bouncing back, you'll get mixed up for sure. I'm super glad that this happened. So I'm just doing this for an example. You would technically just put this back in the engine, but I'm just showing you guys. So I had 0.10 4 times, and my shim kit only comes with 3. Luckily, on this 8th bucket, my measurement was 1.82, and you can see there is just a little number 2 there. So it's going to be 1.76. We're going to go to the closest thing, which is going to be 0.75. If there is no value clearance, use a shim that is a few sizes smaller and remeasure the valve clearance once you put it back on. So, and then when installing the shim, face the marked side toward the valve lifter. At this time, apply engine oil to the shim, the valve lifter, to keep the shim in place during camshaft installation. So, what does that mean? So, there's number sides, right? So the number side is going to be facing up. So we're just going to grease it up in some oil. This was for measurement, or bucket number 8, and this is 0.175, just to double check. And we're just gonna ever so carefully not fuck this up. So now you can see that is your shim. So it's gonna sit right on top of that. You're gonna take this, rub some oil on it as well. And I'm just gonna dab my finger in there and get some oil all over that. Just gonna dab some oil on my finger and then run it over the bucket, and it just fits right back into place. Ah, so satisfying. Okay, so that is what a valve adjustment is, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and continue. So this is my new shim. Put some oil all around it. Lifter number 6. So I know this one's 8, 7, 6. Remember, number side, as you can see, number side up. It's gonna face towards the valve lifter. Get it on the bucket. You just ever so slightly lube it up. However she likes to do that, it depends. Every girl's different. And then you'll notice it slides in really smoothly. Lifter number 2. So the purpose of the oil is so that it will stick. So when you're putting in the new camshafts, or you're reinstalling the camshafts, they're not going to wiggle around. That's what you don't want. I'm sorry I'm beating this on the head, but some people really need a lot of detail when it comes to stuff like this. Some people are really mechanically inclined, and just naturally, you know, they know what to do, and that's how their mind works. Some people not so much, and they just need a little more clarification, which is totally fine. And that, my friends, is the inlet side. Boom. So for the exhaust valve, I've got all my measurements here. I will go ahead and just scan through those so you guys can look at them yourself. You'll see on these last two, I got a question mark next to these. So I did not have a 1.75 left, which is right here. And then I did not have a 1.68 in my leftovers, or in here, because I have in increments of 0.05. So I put the closest thing to it, which is 1.65, and then the closest thing to 1.75 I had was actually what came out of the engine on another actual bucket. It was 1.77, 1.78, give or take. So it's off by 0.02, 0.03, give or take. Same with this one, it's off by 0.035. So really not that big of a difference. Once we put these tappets back in, so we're going to put them back in, the same process for when I was putting these in. Make sure that this cam chain keeps tension, because you do not want it dropping down into the deep hole. So remember your timing marks. Remember there is an exhaust and then an intake. So I basically put the top one is my exhaust, and then this bottom one is my inlet. And then I have my marks on each one, so remember that. And I had them faced up just in case. Go ahead and keep this paper, maybe even snap a picture of it for future reference. And then also put this in a safe spot. But then if you let's say you want to sell your bike, you can show you have all this, you know, with the input. So get the oil on. Well, frick, I'll do it, but put all the tappets back in. I'm having trouble with one hand. You also want to be inspecting these, make sure there's no chips in them or anything. So it's fine if it looks like it has a little bit of wear on it. Okay, so I'm doing this third one right here. slides right in. So yeah, just want to double check, make sure that there's no wear and tear. So my sheet is cleared, and I now have all of the shims and the tappets or buckets all back in place. So